PJ Washington agrees to a contract with the Charlotte Hornets. Now the roster is set. The question is the rotation set? We're going to get to that in just a moment on Locked On Hornets.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube, where if you look at Doug, he could not be more red. Oh, my God. Your facial hair, your hat, your shirt. The only white we see is your skin color and the white stripes and blue and stars on the American flag version of the A on the hat. Okay, explain. You decided to just go straight red. Like, are you looking for death? Are you out for blood today with some of your takes? This is just what happens? Explain yourself.
Well, people might think that after the last show. It got a little heated, got a little snippy, you and I. So people might think that. But no, this is simply I'm going to vote today in my local Nashville election. And so this is the hat that I wear. It has all my previous I voted stickers attached to the bill. Participate in your local elections, people. It's the most important election that you can participate in because it actually affects your daily life. President, important. Senate, important. But your local elections in Charlotte or wherever you live, that actually fills the potholes, gets the street calming, does the things that actually affect your life every day. So go vote.
Yes. Doug's outfit screams, stop and go vote right now. Stop everything you're doing.
Stop.
And go vote. I'm Walker Mail. You can catch me on the radio every single weekday from 12 to 3. Sports Radio, 92.7 WFNZ with Wes and Walker. Yeah, Doug, you did want to talk about our marriage today after the snippiness yesterday.
Well, I want the kids. I want the kids to know that we're all right. I feel like some people start to worry when you and I get if we argue a little bit, but people have to understand that what you and I have is a marriage. We might not have a document. We didn't have a ceremony. We didn't go to the courthouse. No one wore a dress. I mean, I've worn a dress a couple of times on this show, but no one wore a dress for no one wore a dress for our wedding. But we are. This is a marriage. You and I have to resolve some things every once in a while. And I just want to make sure that all the kids know that mommy and daddy are fine.
I didn't know if we got comments. We've gotten comments before when I thought things were pretty benign, to be honest, but I did not see any comments yesterday, but maybe that did happen.
I've got a solution. I've got a solution to whatever ails our marriage right now. Because I think when you and I, especially in the silly season, especially when there's not a lot of news to talk about, when there's not a lot to distract us, I think you and I, when we spend a lot of time together, sometimes things do get a little edgy. And I think the answer is pretty simple. I think next week, we need to get the family back together. We need to go on a family vacation. We need to get David Walker. We need to get Nada. We need to get Nick Carboni. And we need to get some guests in here. And, let's spice things up. Let's make this a throuple.
We can do that for sure. We can definitely make things spicy. The thing is, during silly season, it's the moment where I think I'm at my peak happiest because you're especially going at a few times a week, not every single day. And you get to do the stupid stuff like rank nicknames and top 35 Hornets. And so when you have the ability to create content in that way, you can make it fun and creative. And that's when we're able to shine. So it's one of those problems where I didn't realize there was that problem, but maybe Doug is just tired of me, and maybe that's why he wants to.
Maybe I don't like your happiness. Maybe we're digging really deep into the psychological aspect of this. But maybe when you are at your happiest, I am at my unhappiest. Maybe
that's true. All right. Well, I'm at my happiest with PJ Washington on the roster. I know that, and so with him coming back and playing this year for the Charlotte Hornets and beyond, if he holds true to the contract and the Hornets do the same thing, then perhaps that would entice other players to stay here, Doug. I do think this locker room, I think it's pretty tight-knit. Now, it's been problematic with these comments for sure, but they're all happy that Miles Bridges is coming back.
With what? What comments? Elaborate.
Well, with PJ Washington saying that he was happy Miles Bridges was back on the roster. We heard that about LaMelo Ball. We've heard them actually, and these have been problematic, right? Where Miles is arrested for felony domestic violence, and you don't hear a lot of comments from LaMelo or anybody else because they're not going to be made available to media. And then when they are, that's when they'll say they hope that he's okay. and that they're happy that he's back on the roster after everything he's gone through. PJ talked with Kyle Bailey about that on WFNZ. We've heard about that from LaMelo. That's not necessarily the argument I want to have. What I'm saying is PJ, Miles, LaMelo, I think they're all very close. I think Terry Rozier doing the Miami thing with this squad. Gordon Hayward we've never had any type of, oh yeah, he's one of us type of conversation. We haven't heard those comments. But if PJ is here, now LaMelo agrees to a $200 million extension. Miles Bridges is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Terry Rozier, at least contractually, is here for a couple more years. Doug, do you think that the foundation, whether you like it or not, like how much of the foundation is going to be here, and how much does the PJ Washington signing affect that?
I don't know that it affects it all that much. I mean, they've locked up LaMelo, so he's here for the time being. So really, when you're talking about this young core, Brandon Miller is going to be stuck on a rookie deal for a while, and then he'll be a restricted free agent. He'll be in the same position that PJ Washington was in, and hopefully the Hornets are in the same position they're going to be with Brandon Miller that they were with LaMelo. Getting the tense right there was a little difficult. But with PJ, I don't see this affecting Miles, because I think that's really all we're talking about in terms of keeping this young core together, is whether or not signing PJ gives them an advantage to retain Miles Bridges when he becomes an unrestricted free agent, when he can go anywhere he wants, anywhere that wants him. I don't know that PJ really makes a difference, honestly. I mean, they might be buds, but I think Miles made it pretty clear, and his agency and Rich Paul made it pretty clear that they're looking for a specific dollar amount. And the Hornets, at least in this offseason, were not willing to extend either the number of years or the dollar amount that his team wanted. And it will be up to the Hornets next offseason whether or not they want to extend that offer, and whether, I mean, pardon the pun here, but if the bridges have been burnt already, we don't know. Because, look, those PJ Washington negotiations, it took a long time, but Mitch revealed to us in that press conference that they weren't necessarily contentious, that it just took a while. Everyone had to take a break, come back. Everyone knew the terms. It was a tough negotiation, but nobody signed the qualifying offer. PJ didn't sign the qualifying offer. Miles did. Obviously, something broke down. And the question is, can it be built back up? And I don't think PJ Washington affects that really at all.
No, I agree with you. And plus, I don't know if Hornets fans want this particular foundation to stay here, right? I mean, you want Terry Rozier, you want Gordon Hayward is going to come off of the books. And so that's going to free up a lot of space for you to do a lot of different stuff. I even think because of that, you're right. I don't think PJ affects what you decide to do going forward all that much in free agency. Part of it is because I did describe him on Twitter as P. Clay Washington. I got destroyed for it. People are really saying, boo this man. People are saying they're disappointed in me. Shout out to Panthers Mafia.
Wow.
People are saying, Div B said, hey, get your misses out now. It's preseason. It's okay.
P. Clay. So I understand, P. Clay meaning like you can mold him into versatile, whatever you would like.
Yes, right. Versatile, can be molded into anything you need him to be. P. Clay Washington.
You know what's wrong with it? The idea behind it is solid. Malleable even, because it's clay. Like the idea, I understand. It makes sense. I think people, so much of what we do here on the podcast, and we make up names, and when we do anything like this, so much of this is like how things sound, the musicality of the things that we say. That's why I think even though people don't understand stangin' or clangin', like they don't really even get the concept of it, it just sounds like stangin' or clangin'. Like it just sounds fun. P. Clay, there's something about that I can't even, it's ephemeral. Like I can't even touch it. I can't even tell you what exactly it is that's wrong with that. But when I hear it on my ear,
there's nothing.
It feels weird. Yeah, I think that's the problem.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. P. Clay Washington, it's great. I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it the rest of the season and the rest of his career. Strap in, folks. Get ready to mold some P. Clay Washington. With all that being said, I think the contract, the dollar amount, the fact that he is versatile, the fact that we've seen him take a backseat and in a pinch have to be the guy offensively, either one or two, not great, but we've seen him be able to do that. If you need a couple nights from him, he can certainly do it. I don't think that deters you from making any other signing, right? This is the beautiful thing about it. It's why I wanted him back pretty damn badly. It's because he fits with a lot of scenarios. If the idea is to keep options open and not shut doors because of money that you set aside for an individual player, I think PJ continues to keep all those doors open as much as possible. And that's what I love about it. And that's why I agree. I don't know how much it affects a lot of players, whether you decide to go after him or not, because even if Miles Bridges decides to come back, they're going to have enough money left over. Miles Bridges, I like getting him in space. I know some people like talking about him playing the 4, but whatever, right? PJ comes off the bench if you are dead set on Miles B, the 4. There's so many different ways that he can fit with even the guys on this roster and whoever you bring in from the outside. I'm with you, Doug. I'm not sure that it changes a lot with staying power amongst the other players.
The only thing I would say is if PJ Washington elevates his game, if he becomes a significantly more efficient offensive player and maintains the defense that he has, defensive skill that he's developed over the past couple of seasons, if he maintains that and elevates his offensive game, whether it's off the bench or as a starter, and everyone else plays well and they make the playoffs and they make a little bit of noise, then that absolutely will affect things. But I don't think PJ being in the locker room necessarily is going to make a difference.
All right, let's and so there we go. We got the staying power. I did want to talk about PJ's effect on the rotation as well. Let's get to that coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Peace Day Washington.
Peace Day Washington. I love that one as well. So we took a very macro image of that. Now let's go with the micro and just look at this year rather than the career outlook, the contract outlook with PJ and how it affects the other players on the roster. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get ready for the NFL season. Kickoff is tonight. So make sure you get your lineup set on FanDuel with incredible offers, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and even more than that. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you will not want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets coming up. All right, there is Doug's table. We've seen it a few times throughout the offseason. We've seen it when we try to go to the rotation, figure out the minutes, even if the math doesn't necessarily add up, we still put the minutes up there and try to figure out who Steve Clifford is going to roll with this season as a part of the rotation. Now, a couple things to note. What is a little bit interesting to figure out here is the Miles Bridges aspect. Suspended the first 10 games of the season. So not only do you have to not account for him in the first 10 games and try to figure out who gets those minutes, but you have to try to figure out, okay, is there going to be any rust knocked off after he missed an entire year and then 10 games? When he does come back, is he going to be immediately giving you 30 minutes a game, or are they going to slowly get him to 30 minutes a game? Either way, the way you dodge that is to think that he has a significant role on this team, which Doug, you and I both believe he does have a significant role. So, maybe we can get to November, December, do a little first half, second half projection, something like that. That's how we can roll here. But you have the locks. You have the locks already there as the starter. So why don't you explain to the people what you've already have set up?
Okay, so if you want to see the sheet, you can go to YouTube, but I'll explain it for those that are listening. So I've got essentially my locks here for starters are LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Mark Williams. I just think based on history, based on what we've heard from Steve Clifford, I just don't think that those starters are going to move, at least until later on in the season. Okay, so we're talking about first half of the season here. LaMelo, Terry, Mark as your starters. Reserve locks, I have Cody Martin, and I have Nick Richards. And then I have some other categories here. I've got my category, meaning the guys that, you're going to play if you've got multiple injuries. That's Nick Smith Jr., that's Bryce McGowan's, that's JT Thor. And then I've got your guys that are probably destined for the Greensboro Swarm. That's Amari Bailey. That's James Bouknight, if he's lucky. And then Leaky Black. And then I've got some exhibits. Leaky. Well, he's still hanging around. And
you said if he's lucky, and then I said, and Leaky Black if he's leaky. It was stupid. It's P. Clay Washington all over again. Move on.
P. Stay Washington. So I've also got my Exhibit 10 guys. These guys were just signed to Exhibit 10 contracts. Jalen Sims, Angelo Allegri, Trey Scott, and Nathan Mensah. Those were all summer league staples.
Right.
They're all coming back to some training camp contracts. And then, of course, I've got Spain. That's James Nagy. It's my Spain category. And then I've got my lost in cap space category. Poor Teo Maladone. He's still a restricted free agent for the Charlotte Hornets. No word on whether that deal is going to get done. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. So question marks, that leaves Miles Bridges. Where does he slot in? Gordon Hayward. Where does he slot in? Brandon Miller, PJ Washington. And then Frank Ntilikina is a question mark only in the sense that does he make the roster? Is he backup point guard? Is he backup wing player? Like, just a big question mark there. So, Walker, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward, Brandon Miller, PJ Washington, Frank Ntilikina. Where do these guys slot in for you?
All right, so the first 10 games, Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington are going to start. Once we get to the meaningful portion when everybody is available, that's going to be the question of whether PJ or Gordon goes to the bench. Mm-hmm. I think in the first half, for the most part, I think PJ Washington is going to come off of the bench. But, Doug, I don't think that's a foregone conclusion because that's the toughest one for me. Just the hardest question for me to answer, 50-50 proposition, is are we going to see Miles and PJ out there, or are we going to see Miles and Gordon out there, where Miles more so goes to that 4 spot? I like PJ starting with Gordon coming off of the bench with the minutes restriction. That's what I like. I think Gordon is a better player. Offensively, certainly, he's a better player. And even defensively, numbers would show that the team is better without him on the floor. But I just think with the minutes that you have of Gordon, if the goal is to make the postseason, then the goal should be to keep Gordon as healthy as possible. And they have never operated with the minutes restriction with Gordon Hayward, right? And he's always played, 50 games or below. So maybe we try something different this year. Maybe. So I think maybe that's what happens is Gordon in the second half, maybe something like that. Gordon comes off of the bench. But that one's the 50-50 call for me, Doug. Do you see it a little differently than I do?
I think it's going to be really interesting how they handle the final year of Gordon Hayward's contract.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not how they handled the final year of Nick Batum's. Wasn't the final year of his contract, but the final year before they stretched it. And that was to essentially bench him and say, you're not playing anymore. You're not part of this team's future. So we're not even going to utilize you. I understood why they did it at the time, but I think Gordon Hayward can be a valuable piece this season in some kind of role. And the question is Gordon Hayward willing? Because look, Gordon Hayward is playing for another contract. He's got to go to another team next season. His career, unless he suffers another catastrophic injury, his career in the NBA is not over. It's not the same as it was before he signed that contract. It's going to be, it's not going to be the same kind of money, but his career is not over. So I don't think Gordon Hayward would be very happy with a significantly reduced role because that's going to reduce his ability, to play for another team next season. So there could be some conflict there. And, look, this team and Steve Clifford included in this has voiced that they feel like Gordon Hayward is a very important part of winning basketball games for this team. So, for all of those people that would like to see Gordon Hayward move to the bench, they would like to see him just be erased from the roster in general to make room for players that are part of this team's future. I would just say, get ready for Gordon Hayward to be a big part of what they do. Now, I agree with you, Walker, that because of the injury history, they may finally seriously consider load managing Gordon Hayward. We've heard it a lot. We haven't seen it put into action a lot. They might seriously consider it. But I would look at that towards the back half of the season, not early on. I think early on they're going to play their best players, the most minutes, and try to get the season off to a good start. And I think Gordon Hayward's a big part of that.
I would agree. I would think Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges in November and December. I think those guys. December, we'll just go with that. I think that will be the starting lineup. And then PJ comes in. I think PJ is going to be the sixth man. I mean, PJ Washington last year, yes, because of the injuries, but also when everybody was healthy, he was playing 30 minutes a game. They relied on him a lot. So I think PJ is going to be, I still think he's going to get 25 minutes a game, 30 minutes. I mean, more than 25. 30 is what I think PJ will get. He got 33 last year. So, some of the minutes that were had last year from guys that aren't on the team anymore, Jalen McDaniels had 26 and a half. Dennis Smith Jr. had 25 and a half. Mekhi Luke, when he played in those 19 games, had 23. So I know those aren't necessarily PJ Washington players, but there's still some minutes, even though there's not a lot of change. I still think PJ is going to be a very significant contributor.
Yeah, and you have to take what Mitch Kupchak said during the press conference seriously, that they do feel like PJ Washington is a player that can come off the bench. He can start if you need him to. That's valuable to the team. And when someone is malleable, like Clay, like P. Clay, then I'm gonna try for you, buddy. I'm gonna try to make it happen. Okay,
let's do it.
If he is like that, then you can utilize that, and I think you can utilize it off the bench with big minutes, with significant minutes, with closing minutes. It doesn't have to be, PJ Washington isn't there for the big shots. He was one of their more clutch players last season, or at least in opportunities with 5 minutes to go in a close game. PJ Washington was taking shots. So that can be an asset for them. I think you're right. To me, this looks right for late November, early December. It's Ball, it's Rozier, it's Bridges, it's Hayward, it's Mark Williams. And then off the bench, you've got significant minutes for both Brandon Miller and PJ Washington. Wing big combo for your sixth man. Similar to what Kelly and Cody were 2 seasons ago. You've got sort of a combined sixth-man opportunity for Brandon Miller and P.J. Washington. Nick Richards gets like a solid 15, backing up Mark Williams. And then, Cody Martin, I think, takes a reduced role. And then you got your backup point guard situation, which I'm confused at this point. I don't know if maybe Rozier gets significant minutes to be a backup point guard as well as the starting shooting guard, or if they do utilize old Frankie Smokes, Frank Ntilikina, if they do slot him in at the backup point guard position for like 10 to 12 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, and so what's interesting here too is I think, Doug, you would agree. If you look at this team, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of change, right? Not a lot. We have some, but not a ton. If you look at the total minutes played last year, you're actually missing a lot of guys that were in the top 10. So Kelly Oubre was 4th in minutes played per game. He was 5th in total minutes played, period. Mason Plumlee was 3rd in total minutes played last year. Jalen was 6th. DSJ was 7th. And then you have Nick Richards and JT Thor closing it out at 9 and 10 in total minutes played, but minutes per game, Teo Maladone and Mekhi Luke were top 10 in minutes played per game.
Did you see Svi as a Celtic? SU Svi?
I did.
Backed his way into Boston. Look at that.
I did.
Good for him.
See that. Yes. And so, yeah, that it just is kind of interesting to see that change. The other question I have for you real quickly, you have Gordon Hayward as the 4 and Miles Bridges as the 3. I would switch that. Are you switching that? Or do you? Okay, I just didn't know for sure because you have him in wing and then you have him as big. And so I just wanted to make sure. All right. So any other closing thoughts here after we have the starters kind of locked in with LaMelo 1, Terry 2, Miles being the 4, Gordon being the 3, Mark Williams being the 5?
All I would say to folks is just be prepared for change. I think the starting lineup, the reserve, the rotation this season is going. We obviously know there's going to be change with Miles Bridges entering the lineup at some point. But I think this might be the toughest offseason in quite a while to make any kind of predictions for a number of reasons. One, because you have some variability with the Miles Bridges situation and Gordon Hayward on the final year of his contract. But also because there's a lot of tension around this season, okay? You've got Steve Clifford fighting for his job, essentially. You've got Mitch Kupchak, a lot on the line for him as well, as this new ownership group comes in and is evaluating everything. And so I think when you have all of that tension built up, there's not going to be a lot of room for error. Steve Clifford has been generally, as we've known him, a little bit resistant to change. You know, he likes to get a lineup in there and just really work it, make some small changes around the margin, but really try to trust that he can find a group of players and then play them. And even if it hits a bump in the road, kind of trust that they can all figure it out together over the course of an 82-game season.
The exact opposite of James Borrego, by the way. The exact opposite of Borrego.
But I think we're going to see Clifford this season go a little bit more Borrego because he doesn't have 3 years and he doesn't have a couple of seasons to get this thing figured out. He's got 1 season. And so I think if things go bumpy, after the first 20 games, I'm just saying there's going to be a lot more change this season.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to predict with a couple of those positions. As you mentioned, we did our best, though. You can go check out this graph on YouTube. Just go subscribe to the channel and check it out. Also on Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. All right, let's go to the last segment. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
It's list time. We did my top 35 Hornets list of all time yesterday. It's time to go to the nicknames today. We are going to get within the top 10 of both categories in just a moment. Stick around for Locked On Hornets.
Before we get to the list, I just had one more thing on this graph that was kind of hanging out on the corner. I'm sure people that were watching it on YouTube were looking at it and going, what is that? You can't move on from this segment without mentioning this lineup that I have. I have a couple lineups set here that we can talk about maybe on another show.
Okay.
I've got my ABC lineup, my Bucket Brigade lineup, my One Stop lineup. But then I have this final one that I just cooked up called Sicko's Wet Dream. This is for all the sickos out here. This is what I feel like all the sickos out there, this is what they want. This is what they dream of. I don't think they're going to get it game 1 or even game 15, but this is what they desire most. And it's LaMelo Ball at the point guard position. It's Brandon Miller, the Rook, at the 2 spot. At the 3 spot, it's Miles Bridges. 4 is PJ Washington. And then finally, Mark Williams anchoring the middle. That is the Sickos Wet Dream lineup.
I think you're dead on with that. I have no clue what else that would look like. I mean, yeah, there's nobody else. This is the top 5 that you want to go with because it best resembles what the future could look like too. I think that's also true here. So yeah, we want to see it early. Doesn't matter if Brandon Miller is playing in the backcourt. Doesn't matter. We want to see this lineup and we want to see it early. All right, let's go to the nicknames. Doug, You're going to get in the top 10. Where did you leave us last time you did this?
Oh, I left us. I know I'm going to get to number 8. Let's pull the list up here. So my last one was Tractor Trailer, Robert Trailer at number 13. So I'm at 12 now. And the 12th best nickname in Charlotte franchise history is Linsanity, Jeremy Lin. What do you think about that?
It's a great one. And obviously, Linsanity was not born here, but it's such a good one. It's funny that
a lot of these weren't. That really wasn't. Sure. I mean, maybe it influenced my decision a little bit for some of the like classic horn here. But look, I mean, this franchise has had little tiny pockets of success, and guys don't get nicknames. The guys don't get nicknames when there isn't success around a franchise. So I mean, that's the problem with trying to get, factoring that in.
All right. So Jeremy Lin, that's always one of the moments in NBA history that continues to recycle on Twitter. Like, do you remember the time Jeremy Lin went crazy? So that's a good one. What's the next one on the list?
Well, it captured a moment. And I think that's what's cool about a nickname, when it can capture a moment, when it tells you something about the person's place in NBA history. And for the Hornets, it was one of the biggest returns on a low risk bet in really Hornets history. I mean, I can't think bigger bang for the buck. Like, I can't think. I know it was only one season, one glorious season, but I can't think of a guy bigger bang for the buck than Jeremy Lin. What he did for that 16 team.
Led the comeback against the Spurs. They were down 20 at home. Jeremy Lin catches fire. And by the way, you're right. He was not Linsanity anymore when he signed with the Hornets. Nope. That was very much a reclamation. That was a reboot, if you will. Goes to Houston after his Knicks tenure. Doesn't really do anything down there with the Rockets. Goes to the Hornets, helps them get to the postseason, signs a big contract with the Nets. Thank God, because then he would go injured and never give you significant basketball again. So Linsanity, one stop here in Charlotte, but it was fun.
And Frank Ntilikina, I mean, it's the same kind of bet that they're making with Frank Ntilikina that they made with Jeremy Lin. Now, Frank didn't have the Lin sanity. You know, he didn't have the moment. But at the same time, it's the same kind of like low risk guy that everybody thought was going to be much better than he was. And, you know, that's the situation they find themselves in. But Lin sanity was a fun 16 playoff moment. Number 11, one of my favorite players, but doesn't crack the top 10, B. Diddy, Baron Davis.
Thought he would.
You thought he'd be top 10? It's a fun nickname. It's a little, you know, B. Diddy. It's musical. We talked about musicality on this show already. It is a very musical nickname, B. Diddy. It flows. It feels very 90s. But at the same time, you know, it lacks a little bit of that flair that I think is necessary to vault you into the top 10.
All right. So, look, we got to hear the rest of the names. And thank goodness we're going to hear a couple of these that are in front of B. Diddy. So what's the next one? What is the one that B. Diddy falls behind in order to not make the top 10?
Top 10. Now, I just said B. Diddy sounded very 90s. I'm going to say that this nickname sounds very mid, like aughts. So 2005 to like 2010. Stack Jack, Steven Jackson.
Needs to be in the top 10. I'm glad it's there. Could argue that this is higher too, but I just got fooled with the Diddy thing. So yeah, I'm glad that Stack Jack is here. And you discuss just not bang for your buck, but just not a very long time, but a good time with the Hornets. It was Stack Jack. Makes love to pressure.
Pure hooper. And I love that he had two nicknames, Captain Jack, which I've already mentioned on this list. But Captain Jack would transform into Stack Jack. Stack Jack was the final evolution of Steven Jackson. It was 40-point Steven Jackson. That was Stack Jack. Stack Jack was the one that made love to pressure. Stack Jack was the one that made Larry Brown's blood boil.
Did you see the latest Bobcat clip? It's great because Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, Stack Jack, if you will, host the All the Smoke podcast, and there will be some fantastic storytelling clips on Twitter. They had Tyson Chandler, and they talked about a almost brawl between Charles Oakley and Gerald Wallace. Have you seen this clip?
No.
Oh, it's great.
No.
Maybe I save it. I mean, people can go look it up. We would be stealing content. We'd be promoting their content. But maybe we can go get that clip and play it. We don't have a ton of time. But yes, that's the table that we can set. It's Stack Jack, Tyson Chandler telling a story how Charles Oakley and Gerald Wallace almost got into it when Oakley was a coach on the squad and Gerald Wallace was wearing a towel over his head. Oakley didn't like it. You know, that's how I'll set it.
So that's perfect. Oakley just didn't like old school, totally old head. Like these players wearing towels over their head. I just can't deal with it.
That's right.
All right. Number 9. You ready? I just said Stack Jack, pure hooper. I'm going to go with Hooper Supreme. And that's number 9, Monster Mash, Jamal Mashburn.
That's very good. Underrated holiday song too. Underrated holiday song. I would say that the Monster Mash, I think it's better than a lot of your favorite Christmas songs. Monster Mash, I think, has the coin.
Monster Mash.
Yeah, it's so good. So love the nickname, love the song. Glad it's in the top 10.
Few guys in Hornets franchise history have suited up that got into the triple threat position. And I thought watching them when they got into that triple threat position, it's over. Like he would just size guys up and you looked at it and I was like, it's over. Like he's getting this bucket. I don't know where he's getting the bucket. I don't know if he's going to drive it. I don't know if he's going to pull up. I don't know if he's going to suddenly back the guy down and hit a fadeaway jumper. I don't know, but it's over. And Gordon Hayward has a little bit of that. You hope Brandon Miller turns into that kind of player where you go, man, there's so many options for him to get a bucket. And he found a way and damn those injuries. For not only, I mean, it short-circuited the end of his very brief run with the Charlotte Hornets, but it also, took away. He did the impossible. People don't understand how bad the Dallas Mavericks were before Mashburn and Kidd. It was right there where they got Dirk, but Dirk was not Dirk then. When he was younger.
Before. Right.
Right. But Mash when he arrived in Dallas, it was apocalyptic. That franchise was a crater in the ground, and Mashburn drugged them to 36 wins his second season. Like, I can't. It's one of my favorite players, even though he was only with the Hornets for a short time. He was one of my just favorite players of all time to go back and watch highlights of.
Yeah, I know we talked about it. I know people, yes, I know you in particularly were not very happy with my ranking of Jamal Mashburn. One thing about Jamal, though, was in that triple threat, better three-point shooter than I remembered. Actually was a good shooter. And that's where he did. That's where he was most efficient, honestly. That's what is tough, but that's where he was most efficient is when in that era, when he was able to knock down a three with high usage. That was impressive.
Okay, final one. This is really, if I didn't do categories like you did categories, but if I did do categories of my list, this would have been just pure hooper. Because, I mean, Lynn, B. Diddy, Stack Jack, Mashburn, you're just talking about like guys that could go get a bucket. Number 8's not going to be any different. It's Tsunami Poppy, Kelly Oubre, number 8.
It's great. It's such a good nickname. Tsunami Poppy is fantastic. And I know you even try, look, Tsunami Daddy, he's the one that's
Tsunami
growing up a little
Tsunami
bit.
Father. Tsunami Poppy was the one that would go
Daddy
get.
Doesn't grow up.
Yeah. He's the one I think that's tied or set the franchise record for like made threes in a game, like Kelly Oubre. Tsunami Poppy. Tsunami Father was last season when he matured, when he put his head down, when he got some good buckets at the rim. When he didn't launch bad shots, that was Tsunami Father. But Tsunami Poppy is the better nickname, obviously.
I wonder if we will look back on this 5 years from now and think that one's too high, but it's so good. It doesn't ring home as much as a Diddy or a Stack Jack or even a Monster Mash, but just the sheer creativity of it and it being so wild. Love a random nickname where you have no clue where it comes from. It makes you look up the Google search bar factor here. It's very strong with Tsunami Poppy.
Well, I'm pretty sure this was self-derived. Like, I think he gave himself this nickname. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I think he gave himself this nickname, which honestly, I kind of give you a couple points for if you can live up to it. If you give yourself a nickname and it doesn't work out, then I don't love it. And I think Kevin Durant, we had a good Durantula. He didn't like that, and he gave himself a nickname that was way lamer. Like, if you're going to give yourself a nickname, you better go high bar and then reach that. And Kelly, certainly did that.
All right, so the quick origin story here, if you do a Google search, Kelly Oubre got his nickname Tsunami Poppy after previously going by Wave Poppy, which is also good. He felt that he was a much more destructive force to be reckoned with than a mere wave in the ocean. He has also been compared to NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal, who famously dubbed himself the Big Aristotle. So comparing him to Shaq because of the nickname origin. And you're right, Doug. Usually people say, it's a rule. You can't give yourself your nickname. You can't if you try to give yourself Playoff P. Nobody, people will say that and mock you. But if you give yourself Tsunami Poppy,
or if you say he's the GOAT,
people say that and embrace you. Yes, 100%. So Tsunami Poppy, after Wave Poppy, the blossom, the butterfly that is Tsunami Poppy instead of Wave Poppy. It's a great nickname. I'm glad he's in the top 10.
Can I give you a preview of what I've got coming for my final 7?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
For number 7, I'm going to tell you this was a nickname that I was unsure was even a real nickname. So it's something that I thought may have been, what's the Mandela effect? Something that just sort of mass people come up with, that like Sinbad was in a genie movie or something, but it's not true. Like, this is a nickname that
like
I didn't.
Luke, I am your father. No, I am your father. It's that Mandela effect.
Right, exactly. I thought that was what we were dealing with here. I had to dig deep into the archives of the Charlotte Observer to confirm that this was a nickname for a Charlotte Hornets player. That's coming up. Plus, I've already revealed number 1 is Grandmama, Larry Johnson. It's been a little bit more controversial than I thought, but number 2 is pretty great too. And then finally, there's one in here. It's number 5. There's one in here that I think only a very select few sickos who are really paying attention during the Bobcats era even remember. And it's one that's it's just gonna blow you away. It's just gonna absolutely blow you away.
It's a great tease. That's Doug Branson. Check him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, and you can even text him on the subtext. Tell the people how they can text you, Doug.
Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. Become an official member of the Sicko Brigade. I've sent a couple of texts out now. People are really digging it. We've got a couple of subscribers now. They text, I text back. We're having a fun time. So join me. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. There's a link in the description.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen. Make your second listen game to game NBA, especially with the season starting up in over a month and a half now. It's coming up soon. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the league with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you next week.
P. Clay Washington.